But as usual, I also want to travel back in time, this time to the early to mid 90s, to remember just how big a deal this game actually was. You know, the graphics, the music, it was pretty groundbreaking stuff at the time. Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I hope that you all had a nice weekend. Ours was pretty good. We are in full preparation mode for back to school, which is crazy because it feels like summer just started. But what are we doing here in the den today? Well, we've got 2 boxes of viewer mail to open up and go through from longtime friends of the channel, Brandon and Joe. Now, I already know at least one item that's in Joe's box because I was browsing his eBay store a couple weeks back. The Amazing Toys We Grew Up On, which is a great eBay store. And I saw something there that caught my eye, but we'll get into that more as we open up the box. But after the viewer mail, I want to talk about my recent experience playing through the Super Nintendo game Donkey Kong Country, which I had not played really at all since I was about 13 years old. So does it hold up? Was it too hard? Stick around and find out what I thought. And of course, we'll do our cassette of the day, which is a triple feature cassette of the day today, a box set. So it's just going to be another fun, nostalgic day all around here in the den. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome back to yet another great day here in the den. We're over on the TV today. We've got some original Voltron going. Love Voltron. And before we get into the rest of our video, the Donkey Kong Country discussion and the viewer mail unboxing, 2 boxes to unbox today, we're going to quickly go through our cassette of the day. And as I mentioned in the intro, we've got a triple feature here today because I recently came across a box set for 3 movies that I love. You know, one of them way more than the other 2, but the other 2 are still very enjoyable. And they involve one of our favorite families from the 80s, the Griswolds. Now, do I have these tapes on their own? Yes, I do. Did I really need the box set as well? Well, if you ask me, of course I'm going to say yes, because this was a half-price books find, and you can see $5 for, you know, I checked the condition, they're in really good shape, and you get a cool little box to put these 3 movies in, which I always appreciate. So let's take a look at the art. I'll peel that sticker off here in a minute, but you got Clark in Christmas Vacation up there at the top, and then you've got him down here in European Vacation, and then, you know, the logo for the original Vacation, which I also really enjoy. More cool artwork on that box. And I've talked about each of these movies at least once or twice on the channel, so I'm not going to go into, you know, too much, but yeah, Christmas Vacation, as you guys know, is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a staple to watch at least 2 or 3 times during the holidays every year. But I've even been known to break it out, you know, when it's not the holidays. You know, if I just feel like watching a Christmas movie in the middle of July or August, I'll put Christmas Vacation on, you know. It's probably the only one that I can do that with, but what's your favorite of the Vacation movies? Now, National Lampoon's and I should have researched this a little bit more before I sat down to record, but I'm pretty sure that was a magazine back in the day that would publish stories, you know, comedy type stories and sketches and things within their pages. And I think maybe some of the writers, you know, broke off or decided to expand, I guess, into the world of film. And as a result, we've gotten some really good movies and some not so great movies over the years. But these three right here, pretty classic in my opinion. Like I said, I already owned each of them individually, but I'm really glad to have them all together in a box set here today for our triple feature cassette of the day. All right, let's keep going into the next part of today's video. We've got some viewer mail to unbox. I want to start with this one, which comes from good friend of the channel, Joe, who has sent several contributions to the collection over the past year. Always super appreciated. Well, this one kind of came about because I was browsing his eBay shop, like I mentioned, the amazing toys we grew up on. And I saw something that caught my eye, something that I'm always looking for the den, which you'd probably be surprised to find out that I don't have this yet. But I want a really good, sturdy wall phone, you know, an old school phone to hang on the wall. I do have a couple of old landline phones. You've probably seen them before, but I've got that one there, which I love, and then there's another one down there. But the problem with each of those is that when you go to hang them on the wall, they don't stay on the hook. You know, the handset doesn't stay on the receiver. Am I getting that terminology right? And so Joe had a really cool one in his shop. It's like a forest green color, and it looks like something straight out of Stranger Things. So I'm gonna find a good spot somewhere on the wall to hang that here in the next few days. But I had him test it for me to make sure that it stays on the receiver, and he assured me that it did. So I know that's going to be the main contents of this box, but it's Joe's style to usually include a couple of extras. He mentioned there may be a couple other things in here that I'm not expecting, so let's open it up and see what we've got. All right, we've got it opened up, and already off the top, I see something cool. We've got a Jeffrey. You know, I've got a lot of little toys in the collection, as you guys know, but I don't think I have a Jeffrey at all. Really cool. Glad to have that. Thanks for tossing that in, Joe. Let's see, right here we've got, looks like a DVD set. Yep, he mentioned that he'd be sending me some Smurfs. Always appreciate that. I love anything Hanna-Barbera. I actually went to, back in 1985, there was actually a Hanna-Barbera land here in Texas. It was down near Houston. I think it was only open for a year. And somewhere I have an 8mm reel of our trip there that I still need to get converted. And once I do get that film converted, if it's still intact and it's still visible, I'll show you my trip to Hanna-Barbera land. But I think that's one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of all of these cartoons. Is my trip back as a 5-year-old. All right, let's see. So I'm gonna set that to the side and we'll do that last. Bubble wrap I can always use. Oh, nice. Check it out. We got Grimace. I love anything that's McDonald's characters. McDonald Land, you know, Ronald and Friends. This is a really cool Grimace. Not sure if that's more recent or if that's like vintage. Either way, that's really cool. Nice. We'll put him next to Jeffrey and keep going here. Set that down, move the box over. Looks like we got a stack of comics here, which I always love. Oh, cool. I'm not even familiar with that. Sci-Force. Love Alpha Flight. I like anything X-Men and X-Men adjacent. Any of the teams, especially from this era. Yeah, here we go. Early 90s. Cable. Really cool character. If only we could time travel like Cable, huh? More Sci-Force. Really cool art. Looking forward to reading through these. X Factor. Great team there. Good shot of Cyclops there on the front. More X Factor. Yeah, this is a great era for comics. Right in my wheelhouse. These are in good shape too. Wow. I had some X Factor already in the cabinet, but I don't think I have any of these. I don't think you sent me any duplicates of issues that I already have, which is awesome. Number 14 there. Taking on a Sentinel. Power Pack. This was like a kid-friendly superhero team from the late 80s, early 90s, I think. Awesome. You know those will get bagged and boarded and read, so thanks a lot. All right, let's look at the main attraction. Joe did let me pay shipping on this. I had to convince him. I'm gonna have to put you down for just a second to get that tape off and open it up, and I'll be right back with you. And there it is, in its beautiful forest green glory. Look at that. Southwestern Bell Freedom Phone. Love stuff like this. And remember, you could write down some phone numbers. Have them right there. Easily accessible. All right, let's do the test. Will this withstand being hung on the wall? As I try to maneuver this with one hand. There it is. Stays on perfectly. See, if I were to do this with either of the other phones that I have, it would have fallen off by now. So yeah, I've got some other things that I need to hang on the wall. I've gotten some recent pickups for like wall art type stuff that I want to show you guys soon. But I'll make sure that I bring you along when I figure out where I'm going to put that, and we'll get it hung up. But it's going to look great in here. I really do think so. So thanks a lot, Joe, and Melanie too. Appreciate you both. Great little package here. All kinds of fun stuff. Super excited. So let's move on to the next box. Okay, so this next package, this big beautiful box right here, comes to me from good friend of the channel, Brandon, who you've seen in the comments as LGF213. I think I got the order of those numbers right. I hope so. But he contacted me via email and said that, my videos are some of his favorite on YouTube, and that they spark memories for him, which is awesome to hear. That would have been all I needed right there, was just to hear that it's connecting with you like that. But he wanted to send a box of just some fun stuff as a thank you, I guess. So here we are. I'm going to get this thing opened up, and we will take a look and see what we've got. All right, so I don't know what's in here, but we've got packing peanuts. So that right there makes me think that we might have some good stuff. We'll find out. Let me move some of these packing materials off to the side, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so this is like expertly packed. I took out so much packing material, which I'm going to use as I sell things as well. But yeah, that was like nothing was going to move in here. So thank you so much for the time and effort that went into packaging that. I mean, everything was just perfectly. It was like Tetris, where everything was placed. So there's a handwritten note. I'm going to set that to the side. Let me read through that really quick, and then we will start opening up some of these packages here. So I started going through that letter that Brandon wrote so thoughtfully, and I realized that it was going through everything that was going to be in this box. So for the element of surprise, and I know that we had talked about some of this stuff before, but I'm going to go ahead and leave the letter until the end. I did read through part of it, just so I can go through these items, and then I'll read through it after that. But everything in here is going to be very appreciated. The first thing that I opened is this really cool Transformers, like mini RC Bumblebee car, I guess. I mean, this looks like an actual little remote control car that I'm going to be able to play with at my desk, which is awesome. That may be what you had in mind, I don't know, but that's what it's going to get used for as I'm going through my work day. Something to fiddle with. Looks really fun, so awesome, thank you. Let's keep going. All right, so sticking with the Transformers theme, we've got this awesome G1 Transformers cassette tapes, Frenzy and Laserbeak. How rad are those? Yeah, I love G1 Transformers, but I don't have a lot of the toys. I couldn't figure them out as a kid, and so I'd never really had more than just a few. But now, Soundwave is my favorite because he's a boombox, right? And he shoots cassettes out. just like these. And I think he's got really cool colors, which are kind of reflected here as well. Just awesome stuff. Yes, even got a couple little price tags there. Very cool. And I think I read that some of these are from your personal collection, like stuff that maybe you got as gifts as a kid. I don't know if this is one of those, but if so, that's incredible. Thank you for sending something that has sentimental value to you. I sure appreciate that. So, man, this is really cool. I'm going to have to find a really good place to display this on card, of course. So, awesome stuff there. And Brandon had mentioned previously that there were going to be some VHS tapes in here, which I'm super excited about, of course. The first one that I unwrapped is this great old Phoebe Cates picture, Private School for Girls. Now, this is a movie that I had seen, on cable a few times. It's one of those ones that, you were watching, and you probably shouldn't have been watching at the age that we were seeing this at. But man, I don't have this on DVD or VHS, and this is going to be a great one to play right over there, because I haven't seen this in its entirety in a very, very long time, if ever, actually. I may have just caught it in bits and pieces. So yeah, in 1982, I believe, maybe 84, something like that. But either way, I'm excited to have this one in the collection, so thank you. Now, this next VHS tape is one that I had a pretty good idea was coming my way, and it's this sealed copy of The Land Before Time. Now, of course, I do have a copy of this on VHS, but I don't have a sealed one like this. True sealed, too, not like a repack from Blockbuster. See, it's got those watermarks on there. Plus, you've got the McDonald's sticker, not for resale or rental. And a mail-in rebate for Jurassic Park. It's just so cool. I've said it before. These movies, Land Before Time, An American Tail, I'll put those animated movies up against anything Disney was doing at the time. And I honestly enjoy these more. This one's one that I saw in the theater as a kid, and it's one that I've seen countless times since. And surprisingly, I did not have a sealed copy, so now I do. Thanks a lot, Brandon. All right, we're sticking with VHS, and we've got a good one here. A skateboarding movie from the 80s. I did not have this on VHS. I have a copy on DVD, and I love it. One of my favorite, we're talking about action sports movies from back then, like Rad and Airborne and a lot of these others. This one might be my favorite. It's definitely up there. Gleaming the Cube with Christian Slater. And check out this package. That is definitely a rental copy, right? Maybe at a grocery store or a mom and pop video rental place. Vestron Video. Oh man. This is such a cool movie. A little darker than you would expect. It's not your super fun-loving, light-hearted skateboarding flick at all, but really, really good. Like I said, it gives some depth to it, to the story. Cool music, great visuals, of course, and I cannot wait to pop this one in and watch it. I've said it before so many times on the channel. Yes, I could stream this. Yes, I have it on DVD even, so I could watch it on the CRT, but there is just something about sliding out the VHS tape, letting the tracking adjust, seeing that Vestron Video logo that I'm sure I'm going to see, and just watching a movie in all of its grainy glory, like Gleaming the Cube. This is incredible. Thank you so much. So the next stack of awesomeness that I just unwrapped is a stack of DVDs, but these are like the burned DVD, variety. And it looks to me like I've got now the whole series of Flintstone Kids on DVD. I imagine that's what this is. And what's hilarious about this is I just read a Flintstones Kids comic this weekend, and I love it. I think I have like half of the original run of Flintstone Kids comics from Star Comics. And this was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, and as I'm sure Brandon knows, and many of you also probably know as well, I don't think they ever did a commercial release of this show on DVD. There were some VHS tapes here and there with a few episodes, but nothing like this, where I think now I'm going to have the full series, which I'm super excited about. In fact, when I'm done watching Voltron, this is probably what I'm going to put on for the rest of my workday. is good old Flintstone Kids. Love this show. Thank you. All right, so we've got a video game that I'm really excited about, actually. In the original Nintendo branded sleeve with manual, which is awesome. We've got Little League Championship Series Baseball. Very cool. You guys know I'm a big baseball fan. I love baseball video games, especially like the simple, like more arcade style. I'm not looking for like a simulator. I'm probably never gonna sit down and play like MLB The Show or anything like that. I just want to have a fun, like hit some home runs, throw some double plays, you know, throw some crazy fastballs and curveballs. And I imagine that there's going to be a lot of that in this game here. Man, I'm excited. I played a ton of RBI baseball as a kid. You guys saw me on a recent video try to play the original baseball, you know, the black box baseball game on Nintendo, and it was just okay. But Brandon says this is a good one, and you're not the first person that I've heard that from. So I'm excited to pop that in over there and give it a shot. Love baseball games, especially in the summertime, so this is definitely going to get played. Now, after opening the next package in here, I'm actually kind of glad that today's video leans a little bit more into the 90s, as you'll hear. I feel like it's part of my childhood that sometimes gets neglected on the channel. You know, I like to talk about the early years as much as possible, but I don't always talk about those middle school and even into those high school years, which still had some great memories. And that's what this cassette, this album makes me think of, are those middle school years and are when we first started getting into like grunge and alternative music. So here we've got the singles soundtrack on cassette. And this is awesome because the cassette collection is continuing to grow. You know, my good friend Dante sent me the Crow soundtrack a couple months back, and now I've got this one. It's starting to expand a little bit into some 90s, which is awesome. Because, you know, you think of a lot of this stuff, you think about it on CD. And I did have this on CD as a kid, but I never had the cassette. And this has got some great tracks on it from Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. Like, those are two of my favorite, like, Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam songs right there to start off. It also has got Drown by Smashing Pumpkins, which is a criminally underrated Smashing Pumpkins song. It's really one of their best. You got Screaming Trees on here, but Brandon pointed out a song that I wasn't really that familiar with. I think I'd heard it a couple times by Mother Love Bone that's on here. But when he told me that was like his favorite song of all time, I've listened to it several times since then, and it really is a jam. It is epic, great feel to it, and now I get to hear what it sounds like on the boombox because I'm going to be playing it on my cassette. There we go. Thank you. All right, so we've got a toy this time, and I had to glance at Brandon's letter because I could not remember what these things were called, but they did somewhat kind of unlock a memory for me when I saw them, and that is Spinjas. And these look to be brand new, like incredible. I'm gonna have to go back and remember how these work and kind of what you do. I think I have a pretty good idea of the concept. But this is something that me and my son, and maybe even my daughter, will have some fun with. I'm excited. So yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen with these. These will be some fun battles here in the Cassette Phase family with these things. These are in great shape, So very, very cool. All right, we're nearing the end, and everything has just been so awesome, so incredible, so well packaged. Like, seriously, everything was like professionally packaged in that box. It was amazing. But anyway, so Brandon and I have talked in the comments before about Laserdisc and how I've considered kind of getting into it maybe. You know, I have a lot of DVDs, I have a lot of VHS, I've got cassettes, I've got records, I've got all of it, but I don't have any Laserdisc. And now I'm thinking I might need to at least dip my toes in the water because, you know, go track down a player and maybe start a little miniature collection. They don't take up a ton of space. But that's because Brandon made sure that I had my favorite movie of all time on Laserdisc now. So check that out. And I know I could display that, you know, frame it up. I do have the E.T. soundtrack on vinyl already framed and displayed, but I think I want to watch this. I do. I think I'm going to track down a player. They can't be that expensive at this point, right? I don't know. I need to be careful with my words there because you never know with vintage technology, electronics, and media. But I want to give this a try. Sit down and put it on and see what the Laserdisc experience is like, because I don't know that I've ever had it. Maybe once or twice as a kid, but nothing that really sticks out. But this artwork just looks so cool, blown up that big. Just love it. And then the last item in the box, speaking of vinyl albums, we've got the Private School for Girls soundtrack, which is also amazing. Phoebe Cates actually sings on this on a couple of songs, so I don't remember what it sounds like. I vaguely remember some of the music in the movie. But wow, this is in great shape. I do have a record player connected, so I will be listening to this ASAP. Very cool. Great way to finish it out with the Private School for Girls soundtrack there on vinyl. Well, there you have it, guys. I'm really kind of speechless. Overly generous, of course, but absolutely appreciated. I say this every time you guys send me something, whether it's the smallest thing or the biggest thing or whatever in between. You do not have to send me anything. I always appreciate it. I do this channel for fun. I do it to make connections and allow myself a creative outlet to share some memories and things like that. So this kind of stuff just shows that it's connecting with some of you guys out there. Small channel, we're hovering around 550 subscribers, I think, which is fine. If I never make $1 from this channel, it's not going to matter to me because the experiences are so worth it. And stuff like this, honestly, gives me content, I've been wanting to find a way to do like a movie night, where I grab a VHS tape like Gleaming the Cube, pop some popcorn, get a soda, preferably in a retro can, and sit down and just, fire up the old TV. Obviously, YouTube makes it hard. You can't show any bit of it, but we could do everything leading up to, and I could pause it in the middle, and we could talk about it so far, and then pick it back up at the end. I've been wanting to do some videos like that, and this is kind of inspiring me to do that. So thank you again, Brandon. Super, super appreciate everything that you sent me here. It's all amazing stuff. I'm going to use it. My kids are going to get to use it, and we're going to use some of it for content here on the channel. So that's it for viewer mail for this time around, guys. And thanks, Joe and Melanie, for sending stuff over. As always, you guys are super appreciated as well. Let's talk a little bit about Donkey Kong Country. So it's been roughly 30 years since I gave any of my time and effort to Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo. But over the past few weeks, I've really been enjoying it. It's about as good as it gets for pixelated platforming fun, in my opinion. Now, I didn't go for full completion or anything like that. I'm sure there were tons and tons of secrets that I missed. But this was a game that was really challenging for me as a kid, and I did not make it very far. I think the farthest I ever got was like that first runaway minecart level. It's just really, really challenging. So this time around, I just wanted to see if I could play through all of the levels. And I had a blast doing so. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about that experience. But as usual, I also want to travel back in time. This time to the early to mid 90s, to remember just how big a deal this game actually was. You know, the graphics, the music, it was pretty groundbreaking stuff at the time. Now, first of all, I guess I had forgotten just how tough this game could be in spots. And while I did have to rely on the rewind feature on the Nintendo Switch quite a bit, my reflexes for video games aren't nearly what they used to be when I was 13, 14 years old, apparently. But it is amazing to me how much the muscle memory came flooding back. I remembered certain gaps in the minecart tracks, and I remembered certain spots where a random fish would just come swimming out of nowhere. And I realized this game still holds up, definitely, but it still challenges you as well. Yeah, and I don't know, there's just something deeply satisfying about revisiting a game that you grew up with and realizing that it's still really fun. You know, it's like opening up an old lunchbox and figuring out that the sandwich inside is somehow still fresh. So let's flash back to the holidays, 1994. And I can remember this being the big Super Nintendo release that year. You know, the one that everyone was asking for Christmas. And think back to what it felt like to unwrap a brand new video game from under the Christmas tree. Even if it wasn't this game, I just feel like this was an experience that so many of us shared. And developed by Rare and published by Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country used pre-rendered 3D graphics, which were then compressed down to 2D sprites, giving the illusion of cutting-edge graphics for a 16-bit game at the time. But it didn't just look cool. It felt really good to play, too. The controls were pretty tight, the hit detection was fair for the most part, and every single stage was just bursting with atmosphere. Jungles and underwater levels and industrial factories. Each world had its own distinct vibe. But we can't talk about Donkey Kong Country without talking at least a little bit about the music. You know, the soundtrack is honestly one of the best parts of the game. And composer David Wise created a score that was moody and atmospheric and surprisingly emotional, and it made a 16-bit game about a gorilla feel introspective in a way. And I've talked about the dreamy aquatic ambiance song before here on the channel, and I know that it's been used to death across various social media platforms over recent years, but to me, that's still one of the best pieces of video game music ever created. You know, it's right up there with the moon level from DuckTales. Hearing all of those songs, really, as I worked my way through those levels, was like time travel in the best way. And I had headphones on for most of it too, which made it even better. So, what about the legacy of this game? Well, it sold over 9 million copies, making it one of the best-selling Super Nintendo games of all time. And it really deserved it. It helped re-establish Donkey Kong as a major Nintendo character. And it introduced Diddy Kong, who is a fan favorite to this day. And it spawned a series of sequels and a franchise that's still going strong. But more than that, it's become a core memory for so many kids growing up in the early to mid 90s. You know, this was that game that you wanted to show off to your friends. Like, hey, have you seen these graphics yet? This was one of those games that you worked in if you had a few minutes after school, or a few extra minutes before breakfast, or a few hours to kill on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Now, let's go back to what it feels like playing this game as an adult. Well, for me, it still felt a little bit magical in a way. You know, like the feeling of starting a brand new game and being amazed by all of the secrets and the challenges that it had to offer. It had been 30 years for me though, so keep that in mind. Sure, you can see some of the seams and some of the imperfections a little bit more clearly now, and some of those boss fights are a little bit repetitive at times, and some of those barrel sections are just downright cruel, but the heart of the game still shines through. And replaying it did exactly what I was hoping that it would do. It reminded me that video games aren't just about impressive mechanics and brutal challenges. They're about a feeling. And as you guys know, around here, that's all we're really going for. Yeah, Donkey Kong Country feels like a brand new game on Christmas morning. It feels like summer afternoons wasted away trying to find every single banana and every single Kong tile. I'm really glad that I played it. So that's it. That's our trip back through the pixelated ponds and jungles of this game. I'd love to know if you've played this game in recent years. And if you did, what did you think? Did you get this game for Christmas in 1994? What memories do you have of the game or its sequels? I always love hearing about your connections to these silly little topics that we talk about here. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed our little trip back through the pixelated rainforests of Donkey Kong Country. And if you did, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.